We are 49 sleeps away from British Columbians heading to the polls to vote in the next provincial election. New numbers out heading into this weekend are indicating it's a two-way race between the incumbent NDP and the surging BC Conservative Party, a party on the fringe for most of its existence in our province. But now, thanks to the BC United Party suspending its campaign, the path is clear for a head-to-head match between the two parties. Here on the island, there's been some major changes over the last 24 hours. As we first reported last night, Mitzi Dean, longtime NDP MLA and cabinet minister in the NDP stronghold, now newly named riding of Esquimalt-Colwood, is not seeking re-election, currently leaving this riding wide open with no BC Conservative candidate, and now nobody running for the NDP with less than 2 months to go to the provincial election. With more on what this means and how this changes the landscape on the South Island and how the Conservatives are making a play here, we're joined by our very own political correspondent, Rob Shaw from the legislature. Thanks so much for taking the time, Rob. You talked to Mitzi Dean just over a week ago about her bid for a re-election, and it looked like all systems were go, and now she's calling it quits.
Well, it is never good, Scott, to just 3 weeks before the writ drop lose a candidate for any party. But it was pretty clear, talking to Mitzi Dean around 11 days ago, that things were not going well for her. For those who didn't see that interview, she is talking about some very difficult personal issues in her life. The separation from her partner, moving away from the family home. She had been on leave from her job as a cabinet minister and MLA for more than a month during the summer to deal with some personal issues and get help, she said. And she emerged to say that she was going to run, although I heard from many New Democrats that they were wondering why, when she has obviously some difficulties they're hard to do in the public eye to handle those. So not a surprise in some ways that Mitzi Dean is stepping out, but not good for the party with so little time before the writ drop. You got to get signs, you've got to get all sorts of materials ready. It's going to be a bit of an uphill challenge for the NDP.
Let's talk about that, Rob, how that changes things. This riding that Mitzi Dean has been there since 2017, I believe, and has been re-elected there before, has been a stronghold going back to the Glenn Clark era. It's really been a stronghold for the NDP. Does this change anything, or does just the branding NDP lead to a victory for them there, or do you think the Tories, the Conservatives, are seeing an opening here?
Well, anytime you lose an incumbent, you end up in a tougher fight, and that is something the NDP is dealing with all around the South Island right now, with Rob Fleming and Victoria Swan Lake, with Murray Rankin in Oak Bay, for example. Those are going to be tougher fights for the party. 7 of 8 times in the last 8 elections, the NDP have won this Esquimalt riding, and so the feeling is that they still have a very good chance here, although in the last election it was the Greens, and the BC Greens are fielding Camille Curry as their candidate in this riding. She's done a lot of local advocacy, so she's going to have a high profile. The Greens were in second place in this riding last time. So it's going to be a kind of a three-way fight in this riding. It's going to be tougher for the NDP. And when you lose an incumbent, you can't take a riding for granted anymore. And they were going to take a win for granted under Mitzi Dean in Esquimalt-Colwood, and now they're going to have to put some effort into this campaign. If
we bring in the whole island now and talking about what we're going to see in the next, 49 days. Do you expect that the Conservatives are going to make a stronger play on the island? It has been NDP, not only provincially, but federally as well for a long time, even though despite back in the day we've had Reform, Canadian Alliance and Conservatives here in the past. Are they seeing an opening now for the whole island?
Whenever I talk to John Rustad, he tells me the island is a key battleground for him. They are polling ahead in their view in 5 or 6 ridings. They think the North Island, for example, is fertile ground for the Conservatives federally and provincially. You work your way down through Courtney Comox, you get into Nanaimo, and then they hope to contend in areas like Oak Bay on the South Island, and now in Esquimalt, and even in the Cowichan Valley. So the Conservatives view the island as a pickup spot, just as important as some of the lower mainland areas, and that's why you're going to see John Rustad here quite a bit. The hope is a Conservative blue wave brings some ridings back to anyone other than the NDP, and possibly at the expense of the Greens. So that's what makes this election so interesting, Scott, and what we're watching for in several battles we've never seen before here on the island.
Well, it'll be an unbelievable ride. Really looking forward to your coverage throughout. Thanks so much for taking the time tonight, Rob.